future bestsellers. Lisa Daly here. Today I am super excited because I have the awesome, the brilliant, the newsletter queen herself, Tammi Labrecque, with me here today. And I am so excited that you are here, Tammi, because as everyone here knows, I have recommended your book, Newsletter Ninja, approximately 1 billion times. And now you have a brand new book called Newsletter Ninja 2, If You Give a Reader a Cookie, which I love. I love the idea of the cookie. So I want to talk about that more later. But first, welcome. Hi, I'm so glad you're here.
I'm so glad to be here. This is exciting.
Yay! So before we dig into the second book, I want to talk a little bit about the first book, Newsletter Ninja, in which you explain in excruciatingly wonderful detail why every author needs a newsletter. Could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yes, I can. It's actually really simple. The reason that you need a newsletter is because the newsletter is the real estate, if you will, that you control. So we had a whole day, last month, the month, I don't know, time has no meaning, where Facebook and Instagram were down. If your whole kind of thing is predicated on Facebook ads or Instagram ads, or if that's where you communicate with your readers is on social media, or if I should say, if that's the only place you communicate with your readers is on social media, that was probably a rough day for you.
Right.
Those of us who had newsletters were not worried. Then there was a whole other breed of internet marketer because I got like 47 emails that said, bet you didn't realize how important email was. And I was like, actually, I did.
But I teach a bunch of classes. I do some webinars. I got a couple books. I sort of know how important it is.
All right.
Yeah, you do okay today. Well, and imagine if that you have that outage on a day when your book is launching.
Right, book release day, and all you're going to do is push Facebook ads, right?
Right.
Yikes, that's not good. It's also, I think it's really important to kind of create a hub that readers can always come to no matter what happens, right? So if social media is down for the day, if God forbid you get booted off social media, they're always threatening to take away my Instagram because I threaten to like kill spiders and stuff, and you're not supposed to say kill or whatever. I don't know. I'm always getting Instagram warnings. I get warnings on Facebook, but I deserve those. But the Instagram ones, I'm just like, what is even happening? They're going to take away my Insta account one day, and it's going to be for no good reason. And then what? Well, that's fine because I'm on the newsletter, so it's fine.
Right.
And of course, the other thing is that you can't see the people who are like your people on some social media. And even if you can see their names, you can't necessarily reach out to them in any. What am I going to do? Send a private message to everybody who likes my page? Like.
Right.
No. So you've got this database of people stored at your newsletter provider that you can export in a spreadsheet and take anywhere that you want or do anything that you want to do, anything they've agreed that you can do with those people.
Within the law.
Really powerful. It's a really, really powerful tool. People will tell you that nobody does email anymore. And it's just not true. The statistics do not bear that out at all. And not only are people doing email, but they are looking at their email on their phones when they're in bed. They're looking at email on their phones when they're in the bathroom. I'm sorry to say. Even people who don't check social media all that frequently check their email at least once or twice a day is what the statistic is. And the statistic of people who check their email daily or like every other day, it's north of 80%. I can't remember what it is exactly. I should have written it down. So yeah, it is not true that people don't do email anymore.
And you can see, this is the beautiful thing. Like once you have an email newsletter that's up and running, you can see how many people open it. You can see how many people are clicking on the various things that you want them to click on. And you don't have to have a super fancy email platform in order for that to happen. You can see those things in a lot of cases on platforms that are free for, a certain number of subscribers. And then by the time you get over that 1,000 or 2,000 free subscribers, it's worth it to pay for it.
100%. If you are above the free tier on whatever provider, you ought to be making enough from your books to pay for whatever that tier is.
Yeah.
Provided that you're not using something crazy like Active Campaign, she said, fully understanding how expensive Active Campaign is. If you're doing a like MailerLite, for example, and you get to the point where they start to charge you $10 a month, you really should be able to afford that from your books. If not, I suggest you read Newsletter Ninja and do some cleanup with that list, because that's not a healthy list.
Well, this is one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because I think a lot of times people think that if they have a great big list, that's awesome, but it's more important to have a clean list, a clean and active list. So you did some great numbers in Newsletter Ninja 2, where you talked about, if you have 20,000 people on this list, but only 2% open, but you have, 10,000 on this list and 40% open, like how many more people you have from that smaller list. Also, you're paying less for that, for that list to be housed on MailerLite, which is actually what I use. I'm a big fan of MailerLite.
Can you hear the dog moaning?
She can't believe that some people are not, really taking care of their newsletters, I think is the shock.
It's the saddest noise. It's not even like aggressive barking. She's just like, they're coming to kill us. And I guess we die. I guess this is the day we die. It's true. It's an internet truism. Most everybody says, I'd rather have a small engaged list than a great big unengaged list. Right. There are definitely people in this space who disagree with me, and they do so very loudly. I think that they're wrong. And I hate to get in confrontations. I'm a very non-confrontational person. But I think that those people are wrong. And I think that it definitely is worth noting that services like Active Campaign, MailerLite, all of those, all the providers, they will tell you to clean your list. They will tell you need to trim your list. You need to get rid of inactive subscribers, even though it's in their financial best interest if you don't, one would think on the surface, right? The bigger your list, the more that you're paying them. Right. And that is because behind the scenes, you're doing some genuine damage to deliverability and reputation. Right. And because they're sending on behalf of you, if you're screwing up, it hurts them too. Right. So that is why they do it. There is actually a marked decrease in your deliverability and your reputation as your open rates go down and down and down and down. And what happens is, of course, whatever the receiving email inbox is, let's say Gmail, because it's almost always Gmail, right. Gmail can see that you sent 5,000 emails to subscribers or 50,000 emails to subscribers, and they can see how many subscribers opened those. Okay. Right. So if 48% of people opened the email you sent, Gmail goes, people seem to like those emails. I think 40% is terrible. And I'm like, where are the other 60? Because I have like a perfection problem. Like, where are you? What are you doing? But it's fine. But if 4% of people open your list, then Gmail looks at that and says, people don't really seem to care about these. And the next time you send an email, they're that much more likely, even for the people who want them, even for people who opened them last time, to shunt them over into promotions or, God forbid, spam. And that is just, it's a really like a real technological effect that happens. So when people say to me, well, I have a list of, 60,000 people and the open rate's low, but whatever, it's 60,000 people. I sometimes wander over to Amazon and have a look and see like, okay, when did your last release come out? How many reviews do you have? Like you can tell if someone has a healthy list. If you've had a book out for 4 months and it's got 6 reviews, no, you don't have a healthy list. You don't. I don't know what to tell you. So, not that I would say review or rank shame people at all.
No, of course not.
Judging someone's list, you can kind of tell if they've got a list full of fans or a list full of people who aren't engaged with their stuff at all. And I would far rather have the engaged people.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the questions that people always ask me, and so I'm going to ask it of you because you know far more than I do about this topic, is what should you send people?
Okay, so that is a very common question. A thing that I get requests for all the time is like email templates or swipe files or whatever. I'm definitely considering a templating situation, but then you'd still have to do some writing because the key is it depends. Anybody in my Facebook group just took a shot. It depends. Because it depends on what you write, what your own personality is, who you're writing to, what your subscribers are like, what they've responded to in the past. It is I don't know, but there are some general answers that you can give. The things that people like are generally discussion about books. They're there because they read your books. So if you want to talk about other books in your genre, books that you've loved in the past, books that are, the reason I started writing, that's always a good one. People love that. You can talk about other media that's still related to the same genre. If you write in, urban fantasy, I don't actually know what's happening in urban fantasy these days. I was going to say Buffy, which is like 20 years old.
Buffy has a fan. I also don't write in that, right? But Buffy pops up on a regular basis. I think.
Still.
Yeah,
it really does. And if if you're writing rom-coms, there's always some new rom-com. If you write, science fiction superheroes, you were obviously talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right.
So what are you binging on Netflix that's related? All of that. So other media that's the same sort of thing, because very few people are only reading books these days.
Right.
And that does kind of help them to identify with you too. People love it when you have something in common. So, I read her books, and also she totally loves, Buffy. I guess I'm just going to go with the outdated Buffy reference today. So that's a good thing to talk to them about. Did I say recommending books? I did. I said recommending books.
Yeah.
Things that are going on with you personally, and this is always a sticking point for people because they go, "Oh, I'm not gonna listen. I didn't say you had to send them, nudes or your social security number."
Or what happened in marriage counseling yesterday.
Personal is very relative.
Right.
I know authors who are super open. One of my clients is a romance writer named Amelia Wilde, and Amelia sent baby pictures when she had her last baby. She's like, "Look at my baby." Totally fine. There are other people, you're never going to see their kids, and that's their comfort zone. But you probably could take a picture of your dog.
People love pictures of my dog, and they send me pictures of their dogs.
Unsolicited even. You don't have to send a picture and say, "Let me see your dog." You do not even have to make send a dog picture and you get a bunch of replies. I know. I've got these, you can't see them because it's shadowy back there, but I get these two ding dongs. And when I send out pictures of that, they're kind of matchy. They're brindles and they have white. They're super cute. And so I send out pictures of them, and immediately big round of pictures of dogs back, all of whom are super cute, by the way, because dogs are awesome.
Dogs are awesome.
So yeah, you can send a picture of your dog. You can send a picture of a place that you went. If you're on vacation, you can send vacation pics because you'll be gone before the stalkers can track you down.
Right.
You can just, if you're out on a walk, if you write something that just something that dovetails with this, and you're at, I'm just thinking because there's an old cemetery up the street from me, and you're at the cemetery, maybe you send a close-up of a really old gravestone with a cool whatever. Maybe you send just whatever when you're out and about. Look at stuff. The thing is though, rather than getting a list of ideas from somebody else, Tammi said to send this, Tammi said to send that. Or I think there's a list in the first Newsletter Ninja book, in fact, just some general kind of.
Right.
Ideas. One of the things I've been recommending for people, for students and clients recently, is to make what I've heard called a copy bank, right? Which is just kind of, probably content bank would be a better way to put it, which is when you see something online or on TV, or when you're out and about, maybe you have a notes app on your phone. We've got it in Trello, but that's because I have a whole bunch of business going on. Make a note of that, right? So you hear a conversation in a restaurant, you overhear a conversation, you're like, I'm going to put that in my notes app. This is me on the phone. And then when it comes time to send your next newsletter, you open your notes app and you got 5 or 6 little anecdotes, just little snippets of things you saw around, and you can pick one, or you can meld 2 together because it turns out they work together in a newsletter, so that you're not just looking at the blank page, right?
Right.
Another trick that I've taken from internet marketers in general, which is hard. I kind of say that my purpose is to take all that internet marketing stuff and translate it.
Right.
What we're doing is so different, right? But the principles are kind of the same. So how do I take, what they say about lead magnets and make it work for reader magnets, which have to be very different because we're looking for readers rather than, someone to buy our books or whatever.
Just random stuff.
Exactly. So one of the things that I've kind of taken from internet marketing is the idea of having a content rotation sort of schedule. So internet marketers do that. On Monday, I do authority posts, and on Wednesday, I share a testimonial or whatever. But for you, maybe it's the first, you send weekly. So week 1 of any given month is a snippet of the work in progress. And week 2 is a little glimpse at what I'm up to personally this week. And week 3, so like that, you kind of set up general themes or ideas. You sit down, you open your thing, you're like, okay, it's week 3, so we're talking about this. It's a book recommendation week, but also I heard this funny conversation. And if I use this conversation that I heard at Starbucks, I can recommend this book that ties in my head.
Sort of goes along.
And now I've got an email. And there you go. Boom. You've synthesized a couple of things and you've got a newsletter.
And you've got something to send out.
Yeah. And that's it.
Well, and one of the things you just mentioned was sending out once a week. I know that there are people who feel like, I can't do that. That feels like too much. Right. So what's the minimum you think is that you can have an effective newsletter if you send out once a month, I know a lot of people only send out every book launch, and
yes.
So why is it a terrible idea to only send out when you have a new launch?
The reason that it's a terrible idea, and it's so sad because people do it with a very good motivation, which is that they don't want to bother people, right? So you don't want to send a bunch of what feels like nonsense to you every month or every week or whatever. I'll just let them know when there's a new book. It's a good motivation. But the reality is that what happens is the only time they hear from you is when you want them to open their wallet and give you something rather. And actually there are lists that work that way, and those are fine. I'm thinking in particular of one very, very big author in a specific subgenre. First of all, she releases very frequently. It would be hard to wedge an email in between, but she only sends when she has releases. That's what she's been promising for the last, it's got to be 10 years that people were signing up, and she's not going to change it now. And I don't tell people who make 7 figures a year that they should do things differently. I never tell them that. I say,
seems wise.
For you, that's awesome. But if somebody's just starting out and they kind of want to optimize and do the best thing that they possibly can, I think it's important to set up some emails in between those releases so that you're not always coming to people with your hand out, and also so that they get a chance to know you a little better. Because for me, and I'll get to the how frequent in a second. But for me, the purpose of the newsletter, really, more than selling books, is to build a fan base, right? I personally am a super fan of things. That's just my personality. I'm kind of ADHD and also a little bit obsessive. So I decide I like a thing, and by the end of the weekend, I know everything, and now I'm a super fan. It's impossible to feel lukewarm. So I kind of have an understanding of how that works. And one of the ways that you do that is to establish those connections, those things in common. And again, they do not have to be personal. If you go over, I use her as an example all the time. Sorry, Lucy. But if you go over to Lucy Score's reader group, they're just talking nonstop about tacos in there. They're talking about a lot of other things, but it's just tacos, tacos, tacos. It's like become a little mascot for her, a little like inside joke for her people. Over at my nonfiction list, we talk a lot about sausages, which are a gross dog snack that's not good for them at all.
I'm familiar. Right. It's like the Taco Bell of dog food or dog snacks.
Anytime I got something for sale, I'm like, they need sausages. So you build in these little kind of like branding moments, if you will, and people come to really adhere to you, which is exciting. And who doesn't want to have fans? But to answer your frequency question, how often do you have to send to make those fans? There's kind of a delicate balance because you never want to send an email that's useless, that just has no value. If somebody finishes your email and they got nothing out of it, and I mean, it could be just a laugh, that's fine. But if they close it and they got nothing, just wow, I wish I had never read that email, would have wasted my time. That's bad. So that's sending too often. Or not knowing what to say, which hopefully you can solve. So you should send infrequently enough that your emails are interesting and have something cool to say, but not so infrequently that A, you're only sending when you launch, and B, you're losing reputation. And that's where the balance comes in, because there does seem to be a window, and it does seem to be in the 30-day range. This is all, we're doing this all blindfolded, of course, but those of us who test this stuff and like to talk about it, we are so fun at parties.
The party don't start till I walk in. Don't stop, make it pop.
it seems to be about 30 days as far as, we can tell. And after you haven't sent an email to someone for that period, and frankly, it's only going to get shorter because nothing good ever happens.
Right, true.
And we probably deserve it. If you haven't sent anything in that 30 days, you start to take a little bit of a hit on that sender reputation that you have. And then what happens, of course, if your sender reputation starts to go down is that your stuff starts to go to promotions, and then your open rates go down. It becomes this big self-fulfilling prophecy. You got to scrub your list. It's a whole situation.
It's a thing.
So try to send at least once a month. Beat that 30-day window. But if you can't, if you just genuinely can't, some people, it can't make you. If you genuinely can't, the most important thing is to be consistent. And if you're going to send less frequently than that, I would probably really push for people to whitelist you or add you to their contacts or whatever. Most of those methods that used to work for like really truly whitelisting don't work terribly well anymore, but they also don't hurt. Like being on someone's contact list will help, even if it's not a foolproof solution anymore. Gmail started kind of not caring, like whatever. And you used to be
I know it's kind of terrible.
Work anymore. It is.
Right.
It's the same deal as everything, which is that, some people do whatever, and then the rest of us can't have nice things. So that's what we get for being in email marketing, I guess. But I'm always trying to kind of stay ahead of that a little bit. And if you are doing in general, if you're, using best practices for everything else, a little hit like that, like, I send every 2 months is probably not going to be a huge deal.
Fine.
But definitely let people know and let them know what to expect, right? So Nora Roberts, bless her heart, she's still on MailChimp, which is crazy to me. I'm on her newsletter, obviously, because I adore Nora Roberts in all her forms. And one thing I know is that there's going to be an email 6 to 8 weeks before any in-depth novel, the J.D. Robb books she writes under that pen name. There's going to be an email 6 to 8 weeks before an in-depth novel, and it's going to have chapter 1 in it. And I always say I'm not going to read it because then the book doesn't come out for 6 weeks. And I always do read it because I'm a super fan. And
then you're pining away for 6 whole weeks.
It's the worst. So people send your chapter 1s, maybe. I don't know. It works on me. But my point is, I go looking for it. I haven't whitelisted her because I have a perverse delight in seeing how people's newsletters are delivering. Like, I just want to know. So I've never whitelisted her. And mostly I don't get the emails because she's on MailChimp and her list has got to be 100,000 people or more, right? Yeah, no question.
Oh, of course, right.
So I go looking for it. I know it's going to come. And despite my schadenfreude of watching the emails not get delivered, I want that chapter. So if you tell your people, I'm going to email the first of every other month, and they come to want to read the things that you're sending them, they will even go look for it. I don't have a lot of time, but I go and I look.
You'll go look for that. Of course, what you want to do is read Newsletter Ninja 1 and Newsletter Ninja 2 so that you're following best practices for the people who will not go look for it or who will forget about it.
Yes.
So
that's most of them, I'm sorry to say.
It really is. So I want to transition here into talking about, and this is another question I'm sure you get all the time. And that is, how do I build a list? And I think that is such a perfect thing to talk about because it really just dovetails into a lot of what Newsletter Ninja 2 is about, which is this idea of giving your reader a cookie or a newsletter magnet, something that entices people onto your newsletter list and makes them want to stay for all the magical things that you're going to be sending their way.
Magical things.
Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Newsletter Ninja 1 and 2 are in stores now, and you definitely don't want to miss part 2 of this interview with Tammi Labrecque, the Newsletter Ninja herself, where she is going to talk with me about how exactly you build your email newsletter if you are an author, and a whole bunch of other really cool stuff that's going to help you push a button and sell tons of books. You can check out the video right here. I'll see you over there.